All right, let's take a look at example 4. So the first part here, part A, we're asked to find the inverse sine of the square root 3 over 2. Okay, so we're looking for an angle that has a sine value of the square root 3 over 2. Okay, so sine is the y-coordinate on of a point on the unit circle. So we're looking for an angle that has that sine value, so the y value. So this is going to be square root 3 over 2, and of course the radius of the unit circle is 1. Okay, now this is where you can look up you can use your unit circle to figure it out. But again, we're always going to get a an output between minus pi over 2 and pi over 2. So it's going to be on that half of the circle. Because you can see that there's another angle over here that has that same sine value, right? If I go over here, it just comes straight across, right? There would be another angle over here that has that same sine value, but it's out of the range of the inverse sine. So we're not going to get that. If you put that square root 3 over 2 in your calculator, you're going to get a value on the right half of the circle so angles between minus pi over 2 and pi over 2. All right, so what do we get? That happens to be a 30-degree angle. If you use your unit circle and look at the point that has a y value of square root 3 over 2, you get pi over 3 or 60 degrees. Okay, this next one, this is just an example of, okay, here you can see this minus 1 is now an exponent. It does not indicate the inverse sine. So if I put the sine of square root 3 over 2 into my calculator, and I did it in radian mode, so I'm assuming it's square root 3 over 2 radians, I get 0.76176 to the minus 1, which is just 1 over that, right? 1 over 0.76176. And so if I take the reciprocal of that, I get 1.3127. So make sure you know the difference between the inverse, okay, and the reciprocal, or the minus 1 exponent. All right. All right, let's take a look at another example. Here we have the inverse sine of -1. Okay, so we have a sine value of -1, and we want to know what is the corresponding angle. All right, so again, I'm going to draw my unit circle. Where is the sine -1? The sine is the y value, so we're down here, right? The y value of that point is -1. Okay, so what is that angle? What is that angle? So be careful, because it is not 3 pi over 2. That's out of the range. All right, the inverse sine is always going to give you an angle between minus pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. All right, so in that range, minus pi over 2 is the angle that we want, or minus 90 degrees. Okay, pi 3 pi over 2 also has a sine of -1, but that's not the angle we're going to get out of the inverse sine, right? Just remember, the inverse sine always gives you an angle between minus pi over 2 and pi over 2. All right, one last example. Again, this is a case where it looks very much like part C, but now this -1 indicates an exponent. This is an exponent. So I'm going to put the sine of -1, right, which is about negative 57.3 degrees. I'm going to put that into my calculator. I get a negative 84147 to the -1. Okay, so now I'm just going to take the reciprocal of it, and I get negative 1.1884. Okay, so does that make sense? It's negative. Let's take a look at it on the unit circle. So it's a negative 57.3 degrees is -1 radians. So I'm assuming that -1 is in radians. So it does make sense that the sine value is negative, right? The y value of that point is negative. So it does make sense. All right. Well, I will meet you in the next example.